It's been excruciating to grow up like this.
It's still very much an active case.
A cold case nearly 20 years in the making.
I couldn't accept it. I was in shock.
It's a story of betrayal and heartbreak. Many questions surrounding the death of Brad St. Clair, a local property manager murdered during a kidnapping for ransom plot. 2 people were convicted for his murder, Brad's secretary Susan Clevenger and her boyfriend Keith Schell. But the story doesn't end there. Questions remain, like was there another person involved in this crime? Who was really behind Brad's death? And most important, who was Brad St. Clair?
The fact that he and I met was just a big chance. Maybe that sounds a little romantic, but and I look back, it sounds like that, and it felt that way as well.
Brad St. Clair was a Bakersfield native. His family, well known throughout the community for their successful property management business, St. Clair Investments.
All the people that he grew up here in Bakersfield, he was always bragging about how many close friends he had.
On top of co-managing the business, Brad was a family man with his wife Alicia, his son Joshua, daughter Brittany, and another baby on the way, baby Sophia.
I have all these fantasies in my head about what kind of a person he was.
Sophia would never get the chance to ask her father those questions. On August 7, 2000, about 4 months before Sophia would be born, Brad was killed inside his own business offices. According to police reports, when they found Brad, he was bound by duct tape, covered in scrapes and bruises, and had several small cuts along the back of his head. He'd been strangled by his own necktie.
The murder has deprived an entire family of a very key person on many different fronts.
Just 5 days after the crime, police were tipped off to Brad's secretary, Susan Clevenger. According to court filings, Clevenger's brother, Robert, told BPD detectives that Clevenger had approached him about taking part in a kidnapping scheme.
We believe sometime in June had solicited her brother to assist Mr. Schell in committing a kidnap for ransom of one of the St. Clair family members.
Susan Clevenger and her boyfriend, Keith Schell, were picked up. They were both charged and convicted with Brad's murder, but unfortunately, police still weren't able to close the case. According to court filings and search warrants issued by BPD, the night of the murder, investigators found bloodstains on the door used to exit the business. DNA testing done on that sample showed it didn't belong to Brad, Clevenger, or Schell.
I knew that there had been talks, like in high school, and mom kind of told me that there's probably a third person out there. And then she was kind of explaining to me, and I was like, I guess you're right. Like, there's no way really that he could have been restrained by just one person.
BPD have continued to look for that third suspect. In 2014, they issued 4 DNA warrants in relation to this case. 2 of those warrants excluded 2 possible suspects, Chadi Gugaris and Darren Choice, both of whom supposedly saw Clevenger and Schell the night Brad was killed. Because this case is still open, BPD would not confirm the results of the other 2 warrants issued. In order to protect the integrity of this ongoing investigation, we've decided not to release the names of the other 2 possible suspects.
It is difficult because you worry about what they may have been doing in the meantime. Are other people being hurt?
But this story is not just about an unsolved case. Brad's family says even though this is something they'll never get over, instead, they focus on keeping Brad's memory alive and trying to live how he did.
Brad has a lot of family members who talk about him and who share their memories. We share pictures, any souvenirs that Brad had brought back from a lot of his international trips. We have a box of them, and we
don't pretend like he's not around or never was around or it didn't happen. We very much acknowledge that he was a big part of the family.
And as for Sophia, she's working on building her memory of her father through the stories and mementos that he left behind for her.
There was this girl that he met on a cruise or something, and her name was Sarah. And there was this song on the radio at the time, Sarah by Starships, I think. When they didn't end up dating, they broke things off, he was just so heartbroken, and he would just, every time he heard that song on the radio, he'd turn it up and he'd sulk and he'd just sing it like Sarah. And it's so funny because it's such a teenage thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I've done that with my friend.
Now, Secret Witness is offering a $20,000 reward for anyone who has any information regarding this case. You can call them at 322-4040 or call the Bakersfield Police Department at 327-7111. In studio, Veronica Morley, 23ABC, connecting you.